No more flossing, no more Sam Rothstein. That line is a quote from Jay-Z's song Lost Ones. What he is speaking about, or whom he is speaking about and alluding to, is the iconic role played by Robert De Niro, which was Ace Rothstein in the movie Casino. One of my secret loves is mafia movies. It's the thing I want to binge watch. Totally obsessed, from Narcos to any mafioso to the original Scarface, right? I love this. And I think it's because I've always enjoyed the human drama that's happening in them, the choices we make, life that's amazing, getting everything we think we are wanting, sabotaging it, coming back for some of us, not being able to come back for some of us. This movie was a favorite of mine, not just because it combines some of my favorite elements. It was a favorite of mine because my angels were walking me through understanding a dynamic I would live out. I'm making this video because I've had requests from some subscribers to describe why I always say that my divine counterpart showed up in a woman's body. I felt that my person's energy was more masculine, and it was. If we're thinking about the way that males interact, they're the go-getters, they're very assertive, aggressive, high sacral chakra energy regarding sexuality. I was receptive. I was calm. She's ever bit feminine. So that was confusing for people, and I wanted to just clear that up. But I'm going to give you an example of a role reversal here in this film. But in my case, we were both women, but I definitely was like the wife, essentially, and she was wild as the Taliban, which is usually a behavior ascribed to more masculine energy. She very much reminded me of my father in that they were both kind of lascivious, kind of Lotharios, very, we would, with women, it's called promiscuous. I guess men are not that. They just run about town. I don't know. But she was a woman. But she very much enjoyed that energy. She enjoyed multiple lovers. She enjoyed all of that stuff, which is fine. I was really okay with that. What I wasn't okay with was the breach of trust that happened, not even about the sexuality. That's why, y'all, when I could tell you my story, or maybe you'll read it in the book I write, she had it so good. She had it so good. I wasn't that kind of partner. I totally understood who she was and what she needed versus who I was and what I was going to give her without proper communication. We were never going to have the kind of relationship she might have wanted until she grew up and sobered up and talked to me like a human. But that didn't happen. And so instead, what I did was I made the mistake of Ace Rothstein in the movie of Casino. I foisted my love upon somebody and my idea of a relationship, even with its lack of boundaries completely. She was a Sagittarius. She needed a long leash. I knew that. I knew that commitment would be weird for her. I didn't want her to feel committed. I wanted her to feel loved and protected, but that was what I wanted and needed in order to feel validated. I never really checked with her to see what she wanted. She would feed back in, yes, this is what I want, and you're my wife, and this and that. But the truth of the matter is, she, at her core, is Ginger. A hustler, an excellent hustler. I must say so myself. She is brilliant at her craft, and she comes by it honestly. I have another video coming up about Jezebel spirits and what to watch out for. This is not an excoriation, but it is to say that when we get attached or we're dealing with generational curses, I think my dad had a Jezebel spirit, okay? So it is not individual to men or women. Both can have it, and I just want you to understand that. And also, a divine masculine can show up in a woman's body, and a divine feminine can show up in a male's body. Ace is the consummate divine feminine. Ace Rothstein is me with all of his foibles. I'm not a mafioso. I've never put a hit on anybody. These things are not my reality. Ace kept his hands pretty clean. Actually, Ace was a negotiator. He was the mediator. Very feminine energies. Do you see how that works, guys? Ginger led from her pelvis, sacral chakra, root chakra. She was just hot sex on wheels. And she was played by Sharon Stone, if you remember the movie. And so this is a quote that I found, and I think this about sums it up. She knew how to take care of people. And that's what Vegas is all about. It's kickback city. In the scene where he's talking about this, Ace is describing watching Ginger work the room. She's putting money in everybody's pocket. She's tucking away little nuggets of like drugs and various things for her favorite bathroom attendants or valets or whatever. And she's making everybody's life in the casino feel glamorous, and she makes everybody feel seen. She does that because she's hustling. She never knows what she's going to need that valet to cover up, what she's going to need that bathroom attendant to traffic for her. So she makes sure that she greased the palms. Ace was watching her knowing that she was shady AF, but very much loving what he saw because she was beautiful, but beyond being beautiful, she was crafty and skilled. Here's what he says, and this is how they describe it. Ace Rothstein's love for the Tangiers Casino is only outmatched by his obsessive, possessive love and adoration for Ginger McKenna, who would soon become his wife and partner after the pair met. Listen, both characters are based on real people and events, namely Frank Lefty Rosenthal and Jerry McGee. So these are two real characters in this movie based off of a true story. I love what they said here. It was only outmatched by his obsessive, possessive love and adoration for Ginger. I have to be so honest as I'm going through this journey. My love for my divine counterpart was all of that. Obsessive, possessive, and it was adoration. I like to think, as we will when we write our own stories, that I lived more in the adoration part. But towards the end, because of the karmic that she selected, which was a Scorpio, we were all sharing energy, and I was totally hooked into the obsessive part because I was trying to figure out the mystery that was going on under my nose, and she was gaslighting me, just like a good Ginger would. A hustler never, ever looks at you and tells you the truth. I knew what to expect with her because my angels have always used movies as a precursor for things or shows. Even in the ending of our situation, Frankie and Grace became precursors and foreshadowing of what was going to happen with our relationship. I'm going to make a video about that. Very good stuff. But I thought that was interesting. It made me have to take a look and take responsibility at what I was bringing into the connection. And that was this idea that we should be in a place, and we were in a place. She bought it into the connection too, but I thought she was more responsible than she was, and that's because I underestimated what a hustler she is, okay? So let's go a little bit deeper. There's something else down here that I thought was particularly interesting, and it's about how they ended up in that. This is a quote from Ace. He says, when you love someone, you've got to trust them. There's no other way. You've got to give them the key to everything that's yours. He's saying this to her as he is giving her the key to vaults and jewels and everything. On their wedding day, he comes up to her and she is on the phone with a low-level pimp, her karmic, okay? A low-level pimp who is in her life that he probably got her when she was a teenager. They discussed it in the movie. And she felt loyalty and allegiance even as she rose through the ranks of glitterati in Vegas. She still felt a loyalty and allegiance to this pimp, and she was in love with him. You know that one person that you have that feeling for? She was that feeling. Even in my situation, this was very much mirrored, and it was Ace comes up behind Ginger, the divine feminine. Ace comes up behind Ginger, the divine masculine, okay, or the distorted masculine, and he hears her kind of having this conversation, knowing that she's on the phone with her pimp, knowing, I wish she would love me. This is what he's thinking. I wish she would love me the way that she loves him. Ace was doing everything for that. In my case, even on my actual wedding day, I had my counterpart calling me in tears. It was a reversal of the scene, kind of asking me why I'm doing this, kind of saying like I should be there, but she made no efforts to be there because she didn't care. And the truth of the matter was, I felt like she was essentially the pimp for me. It got very meta there, guys, but bear with me. I felt like, why am I connected to this person? Why do I love her? Why are people waiting on the sand for me to walk down and say I do? And I'm dealing with a drunk, crazy person who I adore, and I don't know why. Well, that's a soulmate journey, but that was it. We lived a movie in our own way. I don't even know if she realizes it. We lived a movie. So this is so interesting, and I had to kind of check myself here. This is how the writer describes it. From Ace's somewhat sociopathic perspective, this is hilarious to me because I feel like she's a sociopath. I'm like, what if we're just mirroring each other? But I made videos about that. But from Ace's somewhat sociopathic perspective, he makes a tragic mistake of placing too much trust into Ginger as his wife. But from the perspective of the audience, it's easy to see that Ace forces his notion of trust onto Ginger when she never wanted it to begin with. Divine Feminines, how many of us have been in relationships with people that we can tell are not treating us right, and we're still sticking in and still trying to figure it out? Guys, I'm a professional intuitive empath, and what I will tell you is that I counsel people every day that Jesus sends about what are they doing, what are they thinking, do they love me, do they want to be around me, do they miss me, what's happening? And there's nothing wrong with that. I have thought all of those things, but for some reason God let me walk through this lesson differently, I think, to help teach and evolve it. You cannot be invested into a person who is not investing into you. And sometimes we know that it's our divine counterpart, so I'm not saying you are not aware of what you're dealing with, but when you know it's your divine counterpart but they're not putting in any of the work, you have to release that. It took me some time. It wasn't something easy to walk away from, but what I know for a fact is that I was kind of enforcing my notion of what I thought it would be, and I was like, why won't she ever have the real conversation, besides like flirty conversations, or besides gaslighting conversations, or emotional abusively kind of manipulative things, like making sure to if we're both with other people, why aren't we together, or looking at me directly and being like, you're my wife, you're my partner, you're home, this is da 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 da. There was a lot of very clear communication, but it was still subterfuge. Have you ever been in a relationship like that? So sometimes we're like, I can't take this anymore. What I'm going to do is try to fix what I can fix, which is taking a look at what's happening in front of me, and I'm going to try to just make sure that I am doing as much as I can to keep the relationship going. That is not healthy. If you get to that point, Divine Feminine, you have to back out, because I love what the last sentence says. Ace forces his notion of trust onto Ginger when she never wanted it to begin with. Ginger knew she was a hustler. Ginger knew that she was for the streets. My counterpart knew she was for the streets as well. She knew that she did not really want anything, but in her mind and in her own words, she did say, I do want this thing. I do want that. And then the Jezebel spirit in her would kick and be like, marriages are terrible. Our marriages are unhappy. And nobody I know is happily married, but that's because she was involving herself in everybody's marriage. So what would she know about it? My point is that I still, even in looking at her behavior and mine, I have to take my own responsibility. I'm like, you sure did think that you could turn, we all know what it is, I won't say it, you can't turn a blanket to a housewife. It is what it is. And that's what Ace tried to do, but Ace was the housewife in his heart. He had the money, he was the man, we get it, but he loved Ginger way more than she loved him. Ginger didn't love him at all. Ginger saw him as a mark, and I think that's how my counterpart saw me as well. Like, what can I get from her? How can I pull off her energy? She was very vampiric, just like Ginger. If you watch somebody be able to work a room, why wouldn't you think that they would work you? That's how narcissism works. Of course, they're going to do it to you. They just are your ally for a while until they can bloodlet you and suck you dry, which is exactly what Ginger tried to do. Watch the movie. It's pretty fantastic. Ace gives his mediation on trust and love in the first lines of the film. And we witness his attempted, and this is before we witness his attempted assassination. So it establishes Casino as a tragedy, but the course of events come to show it as a tragedy that Ace creates for himself. Y'all, that is so powerful. Your counterpart relationship and journey is something that you can turn into a tragedy. You're by yourself. Create it for your own self. I do not want you to do that, guys. I want you to learn from me, or learn from any of us that are talking about this journey here. Don't just watch ad nauseum readings over and over. They're coming back. They're coming back. I don't want any backseas. I put enough time and energy into a thing. I gave her so many times to unmake the bed she was making for herself. She's going to lay in that. I don't have that in me, but some of you guys do. There's nothing wrong with it. Some of your counterparts are going to evolve and be mature, and they're going to grow up, and they're going to move forward, and you might even reconnect. And I wish that, as an empath who loves love, I pray it for you. But as I guess my angels are just so wanting me to have that understand. Please know that's a little angel message there. I pray it for you. I want you to have that. But what I can't endorse is delusion. I won't do it for myself. As soon as I saw the truth, clearly, crystal clearly, I was like, I'm out of here. I'm not dealing with this. And what I realized is that sometimes we divine feminines, including Ace, can hang on far too long. And he hung on, and Ginger just was wrecking shop. She was sleeping with his friend. She was betraying him. She was doing everything that he did not envision a good wife to do. And he was giving her everything. Divine feminine, that's another tip. Pull back. Stop giving so much. As soon as I started noticing what was happening about a year out, I was still like generous and like, you know, that's my person. I'm going to take care of you. That's big Leo energy. But I started pulling back. I started being like, oh no, I can't do it. I like just started saying no, because I was like, why am I giving all this to you? And just like Ginger, she was giving it to her pimp. And that's exactly what my divine counterpart did. I was like, oh, not today, Satan. Not anymore. I'm not feeding both of you, y'all. I had one interesting thing happen where she called me. I'm going to give you this example because there's something similar that happens. It gets way more violent in the movie than it did in my life. There was no violence at all. But she called me and she told me that her toenails were falling off, which was a weird thing, yeah? And now I understand it's probably from multiple pill usage, drug usage, God knows what. I don't even want to imagine. So I was like worried about her, and I was like, we got on the phone and she's like, yeah, this is so weird. And I just don't know. They're just falling off. And I'm like, what? And so she knew me. She knew how to work me. She didn't have to ask me for anything. And that's something that happened. A good hustler will hustle you right out of everything without them ever really asking you a question. She didn't ask me often. I can count on like a couple hands how many times she really asked me for something. But the truth of the matter is she knew how to hustle me. So she starts talking about it. She knows I'm a fixer. She knows I'm an empath. She knows that I adore her. And so she was like hustling me. So I'm like, okay, call and make an appointment. And she hustles me even more. Oh, you know what? I found a black podiatrist woman. She's just hitting all of the bells. Ting, ting, ting. Because she knows black business. Yes, support it. She's Caucasian, guys. But she knows my passion. She knows my struggle. She knows what I believe in for the struggle, right? So, and for the win, not just the struggle anymore. We're starting to finally win. And what I will say is, so I Venmo her the money. I'm like, you know what? It's fine. Book it. Because she says to me, oh, I just don't have the copay. She doesn't ask a question. Hustle, hustle. And I was like, no worries, girl. I got you. You're my bestie. It's whatever, son. It's on everything. I sent her the money. I hear nothing back. Nothing. Just waiting for about a week or two. Nothing. Actually, it's about a week, because a week later she calls me and she's had a couple of Trulies or White Claws or whatever, and she's feeling herself, and she starts disclosing that her karmic needs antipsychotic meds because she is having a nervous breakdown. And I guess my counterpart thought that she got her doctor's degree because she worked in a place where other doctors did. I don't know, through osmosis or whatever. So she was recommending therapists and things like that, and meaning well for the most part. Like, all jokes aside, I thought it was admirable, even though I knew the treachery. And then she says to me, she just didn't have the money for her medication. So you know what I did? I just said, you know what, my princess can't suffer. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm just gonna pay that for it. Now here's the deal, y'all. She took me money and she paid her karmic's antipsychotic meds while that karmic was hustling her. That karmic will be living for the rest of her life. She was always threatening suicide, which is one of the hallmarks of karmics. Not that I take suicide lightly. I've lost people to suicide. I have a video here about karmic behavior, and it's in the list, guys. I'm just letting you know. That girl's going to be sitting in a rocking chair torturing somebody and being manipulative and low vibrational when she's 87. She's not going anywhere. But she was using manipulation and hustling, just like Ginger's pimp hustles her, and then Ginger hustles Ace. And I was like tired of being the food chain, guys. So that's an example of the hustle that was going on there. She hustled me for something that didn't even exist and didn't even, like, by the end of it, she was so reckless. She was like, I don't even have to explain what I did with the money. I don't even have to tell you if I still have toenails or not. And I made sure to look at her toenails when I saw her the last time, and they were all accounted for, check and check, not a disturbance, gorgeously painted. And I researched how long it takes for toenails to grow back, because I was like, did she hustle me about her toenails? Maybe it was real, maybe it wasn't. As the owl says, the world will never know. I can't imagine, but what I do know is that I definitely was divine feminine in my own shell, and she was divine masculine, and the roles were reversed. Ginger, the hustler, Hustler, the same thing. There's also a recklessness because with masculine energy, it's about conquest. It's about going after. She cheats with his best friend, Nikki, who is played by Joe Pesci brilliantly, and lies right to his face, gaslights, and does all the same things my counterpart did. My angels, as they were starting to open my eyes, just put on a movie marathon of Casino, just happened to see it one day last year, and my eyes just, my heart opened, my eyes opened, my third eye opened, and they were like, we got you ready. This is why this is your favorite movie. You are Ginger and Ace right now, and you're gonna have to figure out how to release it. At the end, Ginger meets her demise by getting a hot shot overdose by a bunch of low-life junkies that she's hanging around because she didn't ever heed the warning advice of Ace, the feminine, who was intuitively guided to be with her because they were a power couple. I have a video coming up about that and my experience to understanding that me and my divine counterpart were kind of like the movie Hancock with Charlize Theron and Will Smith, except she was Will Smith, reckless, wild, and in need of rehab, detoxing, and cleanup, and I was Charlize trying to live like a normal life and pretend like, girl, we're magically superpowered. We can work together and be incredible, but you have to get your shit together. Excuse my language, but it is what it is. So I'll talk about that in another video, but in this case, with Ginger, he gave her everything, but Ginger was her own worst enemy, as all hustlers and people dealing with all of those kind of soul ties and her own karmic issues. She was a real person who died in a real, like, scuzzy Vegas hallway because someone shot her up with something that was wrong. She was at the top of her game. She was gorgeous. She was amazing. She was smart. She was gifted. And so was my divine counterpart. Last year for her was probably one of the best years in her emotional life. She felt loved. She felt popular. She felt seen. She was siphoning my energy. She was utilizing my identity. She was doing a lot of shady stuff that all hustlers and con artists do, but she lived it up. And this year she said to me, one of the last things she said to me when she was accusing me of abandoning her, which is just the irony of all of that, when she thought that I didn't know how she had hustled me. And she said, you've abandoned me. And I let it go. And then she said to me, this is going to be the worst year of my life. And you know, the universe is no respecter of persons. It in fact will be, because she decided it would be. And I imagine she's experiencing all of that right now. But that's the same thing that happened to Ginger. She thought that she was better off without Ace. And in many ways, there needed to be adjustments on both sides of that relationship dynamic. Ace was too much. I was too much. But Ginger was too much. But she refused to acknowledge any of that, take any accountability, and she died a pauper, penniless, and overdosed. There's a lesson in there. Not every divine masculine will end up that way, but that's why you have to go on with your own journey. Ace lived to a ripe old age and died recently, in the last few years, I suppose. The real person, I forget the real name. I'm not looking down at my reference sheet here. But what I will tell you is you can live a beautiful life, and that means he had other lovers. That means he had other partners. That means he probably only ever had that spot in his heart for Ginger. But for me, because of how I operate with my Leo energy, because of how I love and because of how much time and patience I give into a connection and how much I gave her more than anybody in my entire life, there is no go backsies. We're not talking about anything. There's nothing to fix. You don't have to apologize. I don't want to see you. I closed it out, and I asked my angels to give me a spiritual restraining order. I was like, I don't want to hear a voice. Nothing. I have nothing to say. I'm not saving you. I'm not pulling you out of anything. You learn your own lessons for once in your life. Ace enabled Ginger. I enabled my counterpart. Are you enabling your divine masculine with the fairy tale you're telling? I want you to be healthy. If there's a chance for real reconciliation, take it, make it, pray for it, and intercede. But don't you fritter away your life waiting for him to get on your level, a hard-earned level of spiritual involvement and awareness. God, here's what will happen. New video coming up. God will put you in alignment with another counterpart if that one voids the contract, and they just become a karmic at that point. My soulmate is now devolved and been devalued herself. She devalued herself into a karmic by creating a mess and not at all really dealing with the energy of being in the partnership that God had kind of aligned her for, because it was too much for her small brain. And I'm sorry, I gotta say it. I mean that in a small-minded, small Southern way. It was too many things. And soulmate journeys will be like that. We were different colors. We were same sex. We were skinny. We were fat. There was every difference in the world. She was traditionally spiritual, and I was too, but then I evolved into this. And it was too much, and her brain couldn't compute it and handle it, and she walked away from it. She got freaked out of it, or she didn't want it, or it wasn't real. I don't don't know. But what I do know is she was hustling. And even in her magical power, she was a hustler. So I just want you to ask yourself, is your divine masculine hustling you? Is he out of alignment? Or do you think this is a real possible reconnection? If it's not, you got to start to release it and realize how you played a part in it and you did too much or enabled too much. Get into balance and then ask for the universe to bring you in your right counterpart. The universe never fails. They did tell me that when I got out of it. Before I got out of it, I was like, what am I doing? She thought that I had somebody else lined up. I really didn't. I really didn't. I was kind of fumbling around in the dark. She was good. She had a few people lined up. I didn't. I had nothing. I have nothing. I am just me. And that's what I learned to have, this me. And I'm kind of into it right now. It's feeling very good. But that was a lesson that I had to learn, Divine Feminine, was how much I needed to love myself and be really grateful that I had me. I got to finally figure out who I am and be really proud of who I am and be unapologetic about who I am. And I want the same for you. And that will attract to me someday the right person to have the kind of relationship where we can spiritually grow and maybe even share other things. And so I want that for you guys. So don't hold yourself back, okay? Sending you so much love. Thank you for joining me. For those of you that don't know, because I didn't introduce myself at the beginning, my name is Monette and I'm a professional intuitive empath. And I am so happy that we got to share some time together and evolve together.